Hello and welcome to the Lirone Glikman show, the show that explores the human factor around business and entrepreneurship in a hybrid world. I'm Lirone Glikman, your host, a global business development specialist, business relationship and personal branding amplifier and speaker. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important, and I would say not talked enough about, skills, adaptability. And my guest today is someone who has lived several lifetimes of adaptation, and he is here to share so much wisdom around it. Dan Ram, global event MC and an international speaker. I'm so happy to have you here with me.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored, grateful, and excited. This is going to be a great conversation.
I think I'm even honored, grateful, and excited more than you do. But let's talk about it again at the end of the interview. So you are now speaking to us from Germany, right?
Yes, I am currently at this moment in Germany. But as you know, following on Instagram and social media, I'm on the move a lot. But at this moment, I'm in beautiful Aachen, Germany.
We caught you in Aachen, Germany. Amazing. So before we dive in and really learn so much from what you have to share, I want to share with our viewers and listeners who is Dan Ram and why you should stay tuned and listen to us. So Dan Ram travels, as he said, the globe as an event MC and speaker at listen to this, 100 events a year. If that's not enough, he did 6 TED Talks until today, more to come. And he's hosting change makers and like President Barack Obama, billionaire founders like Sir Richard Branson and Reid Hoffman, Formula One champion Nico Rosberg, Grammy winners, artists, and celebrities. He works on 4 continents, from college campuses to parliament and in-house corporate innovation, works with Fortune 500 companies and the biggest tech conferences in the world. His passion is to inspire people with his motto, start now, start simple, in building a future we all want to live in. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on today. And we're going to talk about how to practically manage adaptability, the power of starting small, and some life lessons to keep growing. With that in mind, Dan, I would like to start, if you can share your story your experience with adapting to new places and circumstances, and why does it fascinate you so much that you decided to actually do a PhD on adaptability for entrepreneurship and business?
So many questions rolled in one. I like that you're not easing me into this. We're going all the way deep, right at the heart of it. Amazing. So I'm going to start with the end of that question, which is, why am I doing it? My entire life purpose and mission has always been to serve others. And so everything that I do, whatever I'm on stage talking about, whatever workshop I'm coaching on, it is always to elevate and empower people. One of the things that became abundantly clear to the entire world 2-3 years ago, thanks to the P word, the pandemic that kicked in, is that we all have to adapt because of an ever-changing world. Now, if it's not AI and if it's not blockchain, it can be crazy situations like the pandemic where literally everybody's life was changed. So the first reason I am studying adaptability is because I believe it is the #1 most important soft skill that everybody needs to have. Whether it is growing in your career, whether it is starting a business, whether it's moving a country, whether it's living with someone from a different culture, all of these require your ability to adapt. So I think even above communication, even above leadership, even above emotional quotient, everything else, which are all very important, I think this topic of adaptability is super key. For me, this started at a very young age. I am the son of an Indian diplomat, which means from the time I was born, I was moving. In fact, I think I took my first flight before the age of 2 months. And I have been moving countries, not visiting, moving countries. So I grew up in 11 countries on 3 continents, 4 continents. So
until the age of, or generally, I mean, still a lot.
I'm still traveling to this day,
traveling.
but I think by the time I was done with high school, I'd done 8 countries at that point, 7 years of which was in Africa, the rest in Europe and in Asia. And I went to college in the US. So those are the 4 continents.
Some identity crisis or some adaptability skills?
Well, my first TEDx talk was on this topic of resident alien, which is how do you maintain your difference, your uniqueness, your otherness, while still creating a sense of belonging and a sense of tribe and community. And I do believe that the two can happen together. And so real quick, what I have learned about adaptability, because my heart is not just to talk about it in theory, but to give it practically. One thing I learned as a kid growing up when we moved from country to country, and what I put into practice during the pandemic, is these three simple principles of adaptability. You let go of the past, you engage with the present, and you position for the future. So when the pandemic kicked in, I had already got a pretty well-established personal brand that was leading into traveling the world as a speaker, not unlike yourself. And so you've got this great experience being invited, going from event to event and hosting things. But of course, the pandemic meant that traveling ended and meeting in big groups ended. So first thing I had to do was let go of the past. This concept of going on stage to another country was not going to happen. And I had to let go of that. There's a grieving process. There's a sorrow, right? Because this is my joy. It's my passion. It's not just my job. But
And
you gotta let go of it.
in one day, it all stopped.
Literally one day.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on the plane when it was announced and happened. By the time I landed, the event had canceled. And within the next 24 hours, all events had canceled. And so you have to let go of the past and say, okay, that was a blessing. That was a beautiful moment. That was a season. It was a chapter. Now we close that page. Second was engage in the present. I actually ended up moving home to my parents and thinking, what can I do here? And one of the things that I realized is for the first time, I was gifted routine. Because with all the travel, you don't have routine. So I got into crazy good shape. I started eating well, exercising well. I started building local friends. I started showing up to teas and coffees where permitted and allowed. I started really prioritizing a mental health, spiritual health, physical health, all the things I couldn't do before when I was traveling the world. That's engaging with the present. What was amazing, though, is when you do that, you position for the future, because in that time, there was significant self-development, self-awareness, and growth and learning. I acquired new skills around singing and playing instruments, around magic, and all these tools that I now use to be an even better speaker on stage. And so in a very big nutshell, because as you can tell, I cannot give quick answers or short answers, that is the whole piece on why adaptability and what I'm learning from it.
And I have to tell you, I never thought of adaptability as such an important skill. But as you said, the recent years specifically taught us how important it is to understand what adaptability means to each and every one of us and how we can use it. And specifically through your story, as a kid, I always looked at those kids of diplomats as such a lucky human beings because they were able to travel around the world and meet different people and learn different cultures and languages. And they, in return, used to tell me, it was so hard when we were kids, but when we grew up, we realized that's such a big advantage. So I always been fascinating with people with your experience.
Yeah, third culture kids, that's what we're called, TCKs. And actually, it's diplomat kids, it's international business people, kids, it's UN kids, but actually it's a growing number. As people become more mobile, this number of people that are being raised in foreign lands is significant, and the work that we do across the world is significant. So I really believe that building your AQ, your adaptability quotient, like your IQ or your EQ, is super important, and that's what the PhD is on.
And that's a great topic. And again, as I said, for me, I'm a child of a pilot, and airline pilots. I didn't live in other places, but I traveled a lot of places. And I think for me and kids like yourself, I think people like us are more open to other people and can connect the dots. And I think this is, again, what you do, because through your global experience, it allows you to communicate effectively with diverse individuals, giving a tremendous advantage in this way. And let's focus a bit on that when it comes to emceeing. So you're emceeing over 100 events a year. From my experience, I know how much time it takes to adapt and prepare for each event or for even each interview. One event, one conference can have 10 different interviews that you need to adapt yourself into, if it's interviewing people like Barack Obama or professors or Richard Branson's. So my question is, how do you adapt and tailor yourself to each conference topic and interview to ensure a smooth event?
Ooh, what a great question. So I'd say first, attention to detail. I am so meticulous and exhaustive in my research. I will read every blog, watch every interview, stalk all of their Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, LinkedIn activities, anything I can find on them, I will. Because to me, it's about knowing the person and not just knowing stuff about the person. And so that's the first thing, is attention to detail. The second thing is probably attention to difference. There is nothing really new under the sun. And so I'm always looking for some way to captivate people's attention. And I found the best way to do that is to find something new about them, maybe a small nuance or something else. And that takes a lot more effort. Reading a LinkedIn bio, I think, is a little bit easier But I have found that the more time I am on stage, I realize my responsibility is less to the speaker and more to the audience. And so what is it that the audience needs to hear? What is it that is going to grab their attention in an ever distracted world? So I would say attention to detail, attention to difference. These are the two things that drive my preparation for events.
And from what you're saying, it can definitely be applied when it comes to, if our audience here are entrepreneurs and professionals and organizations. So when you're going into a job interview or you're pitching your company to an investor, so you say how to have the attention to details and also understand what they want to know and how to stand out through those details and preparation and the stalking, as you said.
Yeah, it's exactly. I like the example of a job interview.
Yeah.
I think a candidate that has paid attention to detail, aka they have found out who could possibly be on their team, who are the leaders of the organization, what are the different departments, and does the research, doesn't wait to be informed, but is coming in informed already, is going to stand out. And a candidate that knows their difference, knows their USP, knows what makes them unique and why it is them and not just their credentials or their background that is being hired, I think will stand out and do really well. I'm often in the position of interviewing people, and these are the two things. Whenever, like this interview, the kind of questions you're asking already, I am going, you know me. So I have to be on high alert. You're not just asking me the generic, easy questions. And so I'm paying significantly more attention just by seeing the detail. But also, you could just ask the same 5 questions to everyone in your podcast, and it would be fine. Like, what was your greatest challenge in life? How did you overcome? Like, that's easy. But the way you're asking it tells me, okay, you paid attention to detail and you're showing your difference here because you're bringing my unique story into it. So yes to applying both of those in whatever situation you're in.
And again, I want to throw it back to you because as a top interviewer and a top MC, tell me about one of the most memorable interviews that you had, that you were able to really bring out this uniqueness of someone and create this great experience for the audience as well.
So as you said at the start of the last question, everybody is a little bit different. And while you did name the presidents and the billionaire founders, actually my joy probably is more towards those who are on their way up, maybe the unknown, the unrecognized just yet. And there was this one kid that I was mentoring from the time I was about 13 or 14. He's a child prodigy based in Canada who is very, very good, like just innately understands cognitive computing. So now everybody's talking about it because of AI, but you gotta remember this is about 10 years ago that he is working on this, and he already had a couple small successes. But I remember his parents reaching out to me because we both have Indian background. We both started off quite young, and they asked for some very simple advice on public speaking. That grew into about 3 years of just mentoring and coaching this kid. And finally, I was able to bring him onto one of my biggest stages, the same stage where President Obama was and Sir Richard Branson. And so I spoke to the event organizers and I asked, can you bring this guy over? And I'm so glad they gave him the opportunity. But here's where the difference came in. He was still 16 at the time. So while with everybody else, when I welcome up on stage and say, please welcome President Barack Obama, they come on stage and we do a nice handshake and then they sit down. With him, because of our friendship from a much younger age, we have our own secret handshake. And so when we came on stage, my first thought is, I got to make sure he's comfortable, because while I am comfortable on stage, he's still only 16. So we did our handshake on stage because my first goal is, how do I make sure he feels cared and seen? This isn't a big publicity thing. This is a moment between two people. So literally from the handshake, we had our difference and our detail, and I was adapting what I was doing. Also, the way we sat and asked the questions. With him, he's a quick speaker. So most of my questions at the beginning were sort of rapid fire style. Someone who's maybe older, more experienced, that might come across as rude. But I literally told him, give me 1-word answers. And I just fired a bunch of stuff. I said, now give me 1-sentence answers. And I gamified the experience, which again, for him, being younger, was more interesting because it was like a challenge. It wasn't just answering the questions, but it was how he was answering the questions that made the difference. And of course, we did go into some deeper conversations as well. and we came out for a few. I love doing like pitch competitions and some unexpected pieces, and I threw those at him. Of course, he was prepared, but it was also a challenge. So this to me would be an example of how I interview a 16-year-old child prodigy cognitive computing expert differently than how I would interview a president, where my introduction is scripted, my positions are monitored, our seating is predetermined, and Secret Service are watching at every point.
So they can come and bring you down at any second. So you have to watch what you're saying. And you know why I love what you said? Because we're all standing on different stages. We don't have to stand in front thousands or millions of people. We can even stand in front one very important person who can determine if we'll get the job or if we'll get the funding. And from what I'm taking from what you said is, first of all, is about understand the communication style. You would not talk the same to a kid as you talk to a president. Same as is the investor or the person you're standing in front of, is he young or is he, more older or more conservative or so on? Yes. And I liked what you said about making the other person feel comfortable. Sometimes when we're in such business against situation, we don't think that we should let the other person feel comfortable. We think it should be the other way around, and how to get sure that we are caring about them, about what's important for them. So from everything you said on stage, it's so applicable to communicating and helping us to adapt to any circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for making that connection. That's certainly the case. I would say one more thing. It's also about being present, because as much as you can prepare and pre-plan, the joy of live is that it's live. Yeah. And there's no retakes, and circumstances change. I remember this massive Hollywood star coming to our event in Germany, and she was quite frustrated, not for any fault of the event, but because of traffic, and therefore she was late, and therefore she didn't have the time that she wanted to get in her zone. And while the production team were in a hurry to get her on stage, she needed a break. So I remember going backstage to her and just telling her, I'll stall the audience. How long do you need? And also getting in my ear from the producer, hey, can we give about like 15 to 18 minutes? And so on the spot, I improvised for 15 to 18 minutes with the audience while she just had a moment to breathe and catch herself, to be centered, so that she can really bring the full essence of who she is onto stage. And I remember after the interview, that's actually the first and only thing she really mentioned is, thank you for being there for me, in that moment. So that I think is also important, is certainly be very focused on your preparation, but also be very present in the moment, because that's important for, again, the adaptability. And that's same with everything, right? You're in Amsterdam right now, you're in this amazing co-working space, and you have to adapt, right? It's different than doing this interview at home, where maybe you already know where all the lighting is and the sound is and everything else. And meanwhile, if there was some delays on your train or your plane or something, you would have adapted again. So it's about being present in the situation as much as it's about preparation.
And as you said, understand the surroundings and care about them. From what I took from this story is, first of all, that you really are a high level, obviously, speaker. If you know how to take the stage for 10, 15 minutes, it's not easy at all. But most importantly, you understood what she needed to come again and feel comfortable next to you on stage. So you basically helped her to deliver her messages in a better way, or in the most optimal way, through you being present, through you understanding and managing the situation. And we can all do that in our lives in any situation. You're just mentioning I'm being here. So when I travel, many times I try to set the calls or interviews at my hotel room, but this hotel room is not the right fit. So yesterday I just called a few people and booked this room last minute. So I was adapting. I said, okay, this doesn't work. Let's adapt to another thing. So that's a simple example. And so you kind of wrapped up the traits that needs to come with adaptability. So we said, understand communication style, being present, care to other people, make sure they're comfortable, make sure we are comfortable. And we all have in life what they call the paradox of choice. Sometimes we have so many or too many choices in life. Like yesterday, I could choose to come to WeWork and Mindspace and so many other places. And sometimes we have only few. Sometimes we don't know what to do. But in each situation, we need to know how to adapt. So how can one know what what should they, how should we choose what to adapt to, how to make the right choice when a problem or a challenge arises?
How could one know? You won't know.
You won't know.
And you can't know. And I would say you shouldn't know. You have to fall in love with the journey, not the destination. What's the point of life if you already know what choice is the right choice and which path is going to get you there? There are such valuable lessons, character building, many opportunities along the way, encouragement, people that come alongside on the journey. They don't show up at the destination. And so I would say you won't know, you can't know, you shouldn't know what's the right way. Just embrace it all. Try it all. Say yes to everything. Fall in love with the journey.
So let's talk about saying yes, because you said sometimes it just doesn't work. And if it doesn't work for so long, then you have a whole notion around saying yes. You actually doing a lot of stuff around this to share this message of saying yes. So share more about this. What can we take and understand how to say yes when it's so uncertain and we don't know what to do? And
I think the most powerful part of your life is actually in you and not around you. We often think I'll build a company when I raise money, or I will get married when I find the right person, or I will get the job promotion when I have the right boss. We always put it outside of ourselves, when actually, I think the greatest power is in ourselves and in our mind. So the yes does not come from your bank account. The yes does not come from your colleague. It does not come from your partner. It does not come from your friend. It does not come from your child or your teacher or whoever else you're looking at. The yes comes from yourself. That's where my motto, start now, start simple, came from, because the essence of starting now is you saying yes to whatever is here right now. Opportunities are often seen as there. But I have found that opportunities are right here. We just need to open our eyes to it and say yes to it. If I can, I just want to share a quick, very practical story, because I know that sounds very motivational. Yay, Dan, you're very motivational. But how do you know? Maybe you just got lucky at life. I'm going to show you the opposite of luck. I'm going to show you what yes looks like. All right. Despite having an economics degree from Yale University and an MBA from Trinity College, when I graduated in a recession. No fault of my own, just the world was in a recession. Ireland had the highest unemployment rate it's ever had. People in the country who were Irish couldn't get jobs. They were leaving the country.
You lived in Ireland that time, right?
Yeah, I lived in Ireland that time. An exodus that the country had never seen, such a brain drain. And here I was as an immigrant without even a proper visa security, trying to make things happen. And of course, no one hired me. And I'm not saying that, whoa, pity me. I'm saying because I struggled, right? I applied for my dream jobs. I want to be a consultant. And I applied to McKinsey and Bain & Co. and BCG, and they all said no. I applied for consulting jobs in other companies, like in manufacturing or in chemicals, or they all said no. I applied for jobs that were not consulting, that were like assistant to consultants, support to consultants. They all said no. I applied for jobs that were not even consulting, just things like administrative, managerial, that I was qualified for. They said no too. I applied for jobs that I knew I was overqualified for. Those also said no. I'm not talking about 1 week or 2 weeks. I'm talking about 18 months of being unemployed. So when you ask the question of what happens when it's not working, I'm telling you from personal experience, 18 months of not working and hearing rejection over and over again really affects your sense of self-esteem or your sense of, do I even have value? Because until then, I was told the world is my oyster. You can do whatever. And now the world had proven to me that it was much tougher than I was prepared for. So what do? This is where that 3-letter word comes in. I decided that I was so tired of hearing the word no, that whatever, and I mean whatever the next opportunity was, I was going to say yes. Opportunities come disguised, as you're about to see. So a friend of mine calls and she says, hey, Dan, can you help out in my classroom? A bunch of 12-year-old girls have been working on the business ideas for about 1 day, and they need a fake investor to come in. Could you be that fake investor? Fake investor.
Fake investor, okay.
Why fake investor? Because unemployed people have no money and real investors have a lot of money, so I could only be a fake investor. And so I remember putting on a suit that I had. I watched so many Shark Tank and Dragon Den shows, And I was the best fake investor that I could be to those 12-year-old girls. That same night, I got a call from one of the dads saying, never heard of you, Dan. I don't know who you are, but because of you, my little girl now believes she can be an entrepreneur. You must be some kind of encourager, some kind of motivational speaker. And he said, Dan, I don't know if you heard this, but we're in a recession in Ireland.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if you can come to my staff and encourage them. If you
Yeah.
could give them a motivational speech because they're really depressed. And I'm thinking, no, they're not depressed. I'm depressed. I'm the one that's been unemployed for 18 months. It's so ironic. Why would you want an unemployed person to motivate employed people? They should motivate me. He probably did not know my background. And so I said yes. Even though my spirit didn't feel it, even though I didn't feel qualified for it, I still said yes. And I worked. I studied. I researched. We didn't have ChatGPT back then, so I had to do a normal Google search. I just Googled how to motivate people. And I practiced my speech over and over again, and I delivered. And then for months, I heard nothing. And then the PR agency of the same company wrote to me saying, Dan, you're very positive. I love your outlook. Could you write an article on the future tech trends of Ireland? Future what? Tech trends. Tech trends. What do I know about tech trends? But I said yes. And then I researched. I studied these tech trends. I read the papers. I read the white papers. I got qualified in areas that my qualification did not permit me to be qualified. And I wrote the best article I could. And then nothing prepared me for the next phone call. Because the next phone call was from an actual investor. No. Who was the chairman of the actual Dragon's Den of Ireland, which is the big TV show about investments. And he said, Dan, I've been commissioned by the Department of Jobs, Enterprise, and Innovation to put together a 7-person panel to write the national policy on entrepreneurship. Will you be one of those 7? And I said, yes. Not because I was qualified, not because I was ambitious alone, not because I was arrogant, but because I had learned to fall in love with the journey and not the destination. I had learned that I love stepping out of the comfort zone, that I love doing things that I'd never been done before, that I love stretching myself, pushing myself, that I love discovering new ways to impact people, to serve people, because all these roles were benefiting other people. They didn't show any benefit to me. None of these were paid opportunities along the way. But I learned that I love serving other people. That journey was what made me go yes to it. And I gave the best I could to that. And, because it's a national policy on entrepreneurship, it's affected billions in GDP and millions in jobs. And it's been such a joy. But that journey, I want to be clear, came disguised, not as big. It didn't start with, do you want to advise the government? It started with, can you volunteer your time as a fake investor to a bunch of 12-year-old girls at a local school? Yeah. That's how it began. So what do you do when the journey gets tough? You just keep going and you say yes to everything. Don't qualify and don't disqualify yourself. Don't undermine opportunities and don't emphasize what you think you can do or you can't do. Just say yes. Just say yes to what is here, what is now. I love this story, and I also invite our listeners and viewers to search your TED Talks, because on some of your TED Talks you actually also share this story. And again, there were so many reasons why you could have said no. Like you had you studied in Yale, and you had your profession, and this not necessarily was your profession. Becoming an actor, fake investor. There are so many reasons to say no. There's so many reasons to feel the imposter syndrome. Like, how can I possibly, consult a government? But hey, you said yes, but you didn't just said yes, you researched. And I take from what you're saying the sense of being curious and open to learning all the time, because eventually everything, nobody can take away our abilities or experience, and you just leveled up through these experiences. And I just love this story, because it just shows that really things can lead to the best outcomes. And maybe it wasn't the things that you thought. Maybe if you were, in one of the big consulting firms, you would have been so miserable, but hey, now you found the mission that you love. And it actually brings me directly to the next question that I prepared for us, because adaptation requires us to release things from life, to release people, existing beliefs or perceptions, like you just said. So how do you go about releasing past perceptions or dreams, like you dreamt to work in a consulting firms, and truly embrace the new unknown possibilities? So how do you do this switch in your mindset? Wow, that's a great question. It's tough because release involves grief for sure. There is no arrogance. There is no, I'm better than you, I deserve more when one releases opportunity, jobs or people or situations or environments or contexts. For me, though, I have found it's more that I can level up and embrace new things when I have nothing to lose. My best moments in life, my inflection moments have been when I've been at the bottom of the pit. Because when you hold on to certain things or certain people or situations, or even what you expect of yourself, like, oh, I
Yeah.
deserve to live in a 3-bedroom house, or I need to pay for my car, or whatever it might be, it actually prevents you from taking those risks. It actually prevents you from taking that step. But when you're at the bottom of the pit, you have nothing to lose. The reason I said yes to volunteering is because I had nothing to lose at that point. It's not like I had a job that was paying me some money that I would have to take time away from, or I had a better opportunity. I had nothing to lose, only something to gain from it. It's same with the pandemic. I don't think I would have shifted and become a virtual MC and speaker and built a studio and started doing green rooms and immersive spaces if I was holding on to the vision that I need lights and sound and a stage to perform, because I have cultivated my art to be very interactive with these things, right?
Yeah.
But when I let go of that notion, I thought, well, what's the most important part? The most important part is I speak with my heart. And as long as I bring that to a screen, people will feel it. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if I can high five them or hug them, because if I can show up on their screen in a moment that they're also feeling in a low place, maybe that's good enough. And so you just let go of those things. So I would say maybe cultivating a mindset of release, not because you're better, but release so that there's nothing holding you back,
Yeah.
and that you can give yourself the best opportunity to move forward. It's more about not being entangled,
Yeah.
and just brushing off everything that is constraining you so that you're free to make the
Yeah.
right choices. And then to come back and bless all those situations and those people that you had to let go of, because you're now in a position where you can do that because they're part of your journey. And sometimes
Yeah.
letting go is the most vital part of that journey. So go back and bless them.
That's very, very important. So appreciate what you have, where you came from, but also release so you could possibly grow those wings that will help you get to the next stage. And you're always saying that we should start small and start simple and then
No,
grow.
start
And
now, not
start
start
now,
small
start now,
necessarily.
now.
Start
No,
now.
start now, start simple.
Yes.
And through that, again, when you have so many stories where you started now, started simple, and then things grew, like you had this story about a party that you threw. It was supposed to be for 300 people back in India, and eventually it was 3,000 people came over. So I wanted to ask you a small question about
300,000.
300,000.
Uh-huh.
My research, 300,000, not so from 300 to 300,000 in India. It was like a festival. So my question is about the mechanics of how to scale a simple beginning, a small and simple beginning, to what are the steps to making it big? Maybe it's a big question, but if you can give like some kind of practical mechanics of how to start it so it would possibly grow and scale.
Number one,
Number
be
one.
open-minded. I remember at the earliest part, all I had was a dream. I said, I want to throw a party in India
Yeah.
for, actually it was even less. It was like, I want to throw a party for 100 people or something. And I remember talking to a lady sitting next to me in church. And she said, what are you doing this Christmas? And I said, I'm throwing a party in India for a couple 100 people to inspire them for the new year. And she said, oh, I'd love to help. Now, in my mind, maybe she was not the ideal team member, but be open-minded. So I said, sure. How would you like to help? He said, come to my office. And I thought, you have an office? I didn't even know you worked. I show up and she is the head of Azure for Microsoft in Ireland. And I'm like, what is even happening? I didn't even know you sitting next to me. I mean, it was my first time in church. It was her first time in church. We didn't know each other. And she said, hey, can my team make all the visuals behind you for the music part of it, so the big screens that are there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that we've got Microsoft. But that happened just by being open-minded, to have a conversation with anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
But part of that is building allies. I engaged her. I brought her on because we were united in vision and in values. I remember a classical guitarist writing to me from Germany saying, can I come? And I was like, yeah, why not? It wasn't the sound I thought would work, but be open-minded, build bridges. Actually, his was one of the more popular elements of it. I remember a bunch of skateboarders writing to me and saying, could we be part of this? And I thought, skateboarding at a Christmas event, but sure, why not? Let's build a couple pipes outside and let's just see what they do. You know, that will draw attention. And then as that grew, I remember the winners of India's Got Talent wrote to us saying, we hear you've got this Christmas event going on. Could we debut our single there? And I was thinking, what? But it started by talking to the lady next to me in church. So the second thing I'd say is build allies. Don't go at it alone. Build allies, build teams. Third, you got to know how to pivot. Because when things are growing so quickly, it doesn't stick to the plan. The plan was 100 people in a room. But then when we started having this German classical guitars and India's Got Talent, well, the audience started growing. So we needed a bigger venue. So I started looking at that. Remember, a mall wrote to us saying, at Christmas time, if we put a couple stages around the place, do you think that would work? Now, actually, the answer is no, it doesn't work because you need people to be seated and listening for music to work and for a show to happen. So I had to pivot my thinking and saying, what if it wasn't a show like from 5 to 7, but what if it was a show like multiple stages and multiple times throughout for a whole week? So I had to pivot my thinking around it. Plus, if you're going to have skateboarders, there needs to be an outside space. If you're going to have a choir, it needs to be an inside space. And how do we do that? So third is pivot. And fourth, and probably the most important and not said enough in interviews, serendipity. Now, you might call it coincidence. You might call it luck. You might call it chance. I am a faith person, so I will say it is also divine. It's not pure chance by itself, but I cannot take credit for the things I did not organize. I did not organize for that lady to sit next to me. I did not organize for the German classical guitarist to become aware and to write to me on a Yahoo account. I mean, who remembers Yahoo? You know, like this is where serendipity comes in. For that mall, to even the right person to be there and go, okay, this is an interesting concept. Why don't we try to work with this kid who's living in Ireland, who has some connection to India? Why not? So I would say these are probably the things that come to my mind first when you say, how do you go from start here, start simple like this moment and scale so quickly? Is be open-minded, build allies, pivots, and serendipity.
And it's amazing because eventually, if we will not open our eyes to these opportunities, as you said, you could have said no, you could have stayed with your fixed mindset. This is what I want to do, and that's how I want it to happen. So I believe that, as you said, that the world speaks to us through coincidence, through serendipity, but our goal is to see it and act upon it or explore the possibility. Maybe it wouldn't have happened with the skateboard kids or people, but still you explored it and you said, hey, that could be amazing. True. So what do you have to say about that? How do you, I mean, when the opportunity arises, you have to be open to understand maybe
and say yes.
That's the way that you say yes. Exactly. You say yes.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I know it sounds simpler than it actually is. But actually, the easiest part is saying yes. It's what happens after. But the problem is we think too much about after. So if you just do the yes part, you learn the rest along the journey. But we disqualify, right? We go, well, I don't know how to build the space for a skateboarder. I don't know how to talk to skate. Like we talk ourselves out of it. But the easiest part is just say yes and then figure it out. That's it.
And I know even for me, for many years, I felt like, what if I say yes and I won't be able to deliver? I mean, there's so much, inner thoughts of what if I will fail them but you're saying just say yes, believe in yourself, believe in the journey.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Now, you come from the Indian culture, which is so rich and so fascinating. Can you share what have you learned from your Indian background and that you carry on with you everywhere and to your work and to the way you interact with people?
The India piece, I think Indians are very people-oriented. And so I like that even though the titles are cool and the awards are cool and the stages are big, my family and my community remind me always that it doesn't mean anything if you don't have love. and if you do not connect with people one-on-one, because India is a big nation, and we have big weddings and we have big parties and all, but you will never ever go unnoticed. It's so weird. It seems almost like a dichotomy. If you have 300 people at a wedding, how could you be noticed? And yet, it would be considered significantly disrespectful if the wedding party did not meet all of their guests. And the guests that cannot get up and go see them, like the elderly, they will leave the stage and they will go and honor the grandparents and the elderly people in the group. And that's why we also call everybody uncle, auntie, cousin, brother, sister, not titles, not Dr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, but everybody's family. And I think I carry that same essence in me. I know even at events with 5,000 people, I will stand at the door and I will high five every single person as they come in. And I will try to call as many people out by name as possible, even when I'm on stage, because they've got their name tags. And so I think that's the first thing. And the second is, even though India is a nation, it is a nation of many cultures, many languages, many ideologies, many religions, many colors, many even races, right? India is a country of much and many. And I think I want to maintain this perspective, partly because I grew up as a diplomat's kid, of embracing multiplicity. And not just about tolerance, but it's more than that. I think it's even celebrating, appreciating, elevating people who think differently, do differently, look differently, act differently. So I think these are the two things from my Indian culture that I try to bring into my work.
This is so moving to me. I really love these values and those, just being humane. And I have no doubt that these are definitely some of the best skills that enable you to become such a great communicator and such a great MC and interviewer. And with that in mind, I have two more quick questions for you for today. One would be, eventually in our journey, we face so many obstacles that definitely can hinder our progress, if it's mentally or, again, externally. But if we overcome them, we can definitely break through to new realms and opportunities. So I want you to share another story. You have another very interesting story about this that happened in Africa. So can share this with us.
You talking about the animal?
About the animal story. How?
Well,
You didn't hold back.
My name Daniel gives it away, because if you've read any old texts on the original Daniel, you know that there's a ferocious animal that is involved in the story. But here's what happened. I was 16 in Zimbabwe. We were on a school trip, and it's so weird that looking back, because nowadays there's no way that would even been allowed. But here's what were happening. We're sailing in the daytime, and during lunchtime, we would dock the boats on these not man-made, totally natural islands in the middle of a river that are unscripted, uncharted. Nobody knows what's on these islands, and you explore and you see what animals are there. We saw giraffes and zebras and elephants and crocodiles and hippos and wildebeest. And Africa is so rich, and Zimbabwe is so rich. And at one point, as you're walking through this high, tall elephant grass, I think you know where this is going, but as you're walking through it, out of nowhere, we hear this, and not stationary, running towards us. Now, I have never been chased by a lion in my life, but there's something biological that makes you know that you're about to get eaten. We walk around our big cities like we are rulers of our turf. But when you are being chased by a predator, you do not see yourself as Daniel, the teen black. No, you see yourself as food, and you better run, otherwise you're going to get eaten. And so actually everybody ran. I want to say that I was very courageous, that I'm a very strong, powerful mind, and I stood my ground. But actually, my mind was saying, run, Dan, run, 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 run for your life. And my legs went, psh, forget it. You can't outrun a lion. So I actually stood my ground, which was the right thing to do. I didn't know that. But our guide who was with us, who was armed with not a gun, not a machete, not a sword, not a knife, but with a stick, That's all he had was a stick.
Oh no.
He in one swoop, as this is coming at us, and everyone's running, he turns around and goes, "Stop!" We all froze.
Okay.
And when we froze, when we stopped moving from the thing that we feared, from the challenge, from the obstacle, from that the thing that could destroy us, when we stopped and faced it, it stopped and faced us. So that's probably the first thing that I want to point out is whatever it is that you fear, whatever it is that is chasing you, pursuing you, that could destroy you, turn around and face it.
Yeah.
As long as you keep running, at some point it will overtake you. And so we faced it. And the lion at that point came out of the bush and faced us. It was too close for comfort. If you know anything about lions, it was easily seconds from destroying us. It is stronger than us. It is faster than us. In the jungle, it is mightier than us. And we had nothing to fight against it. Except, and this is what you should do, if you're ever chased by a lion, you look at it and you take one step towards it. Yeah, I know that doesn't make sense. You would think, oh, you want to back away, you want to run away, you want to climb a tree, you want to swim. No, you actually take one step towards it. And especially when we did that together as a unit, one step towards the lion, well, the lion was confused because it is in the position of chasing, not being confronted. Yeah. And so it backed down a bit. And then the guide again counted very slowly. He's like, 1, 2, 3, step. And we all stepped. And again, it crouched. We played this game. And every so often, the lion would take a few steps forward. And we would take a few steps back, pause. Yeah. And then another step forward and another step. That showdown lasted for about 20 minutes. But honestly, it felt like 5 days that we looked at death directly in the face. I mean, like eyes locked in, teeth drooling in anticipation for its meal, muscles. I mean, you see the veins. That's how close this lion was. And you realize you're facing death. And unless you dare to take a step towards what you fear, it's not going to go away. And so that really was the start of my motto, start now, start simple, because when you have nothing, nothing at all to fight with, to attack, and we have no one who will fight for you, well, you have to do it for yourself. And in that moment, I had to take that step, that one step of faith. Sometimes, because we were looking at the lion, I didn't know what I was stepping on. Sometimes I didn't know if my step was big enough or small enough. Sometimes I didn't know the sound it would make or the consequences, but you still got to take the step. Because standing, well, that might work with bears or some other creature. But if you just stood still, the lion would take you down. So that's what I learned from that moment.
And we all have our lions, right? They just come in different shapes and sometimes not in the jungle. Exactly. Wow, what a story. Even though I heard the shorter version, I almost lost my breath when you were just sharing it right now. Crazy story with such a great moral. And I think that's the best way to finish this interview. Just really remember to face your fears and move forward, right? And start now. Start simple steps, but just go towards it.
That's exactly it. Whoever you are, where you're listening, we all go through seasons in our lives. Yeah. And so whatever the season is, whether you're in a season of hope and aspiration for a better next, or if you're in a season of struggle, and I hope I've shared enough stories from both of success and struggle. Start now, start simple is a motto that's helped me a lot. I dedicate all my life to helping people start now, start simple. So whether I'm on stage sharing stories, whether I'm in accelerators doing coaching on public speaking or pitching, whether it's one-on-one with people, whether it's social media, my desire is to help you, the listener, the viewer, to start now, start simple. So please do not hesitate to reach out. It's not like I'm on a mission to build my own kingdom. It's actually the opposite. I'm on a mission to help you build yours. So please connect with me, and I would love to journey with you in your own start now, start simple experience.
Dan, it's been so amazing. And for those who want to connect or should connect with you, the website is I am Dan Ram. It's so simple and catchy. IamDanRam.com. And obviously you're on LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And I would love the chance to see you personally and on stage at some point this year. We almost tried to do it a few months, like 2 months ago, in Germany, but I'll definitely hope that we could do it this year. And I really want to thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for pouring so much heart and authenticity. And as I always say, you cannot fake it. And your heart is big. Your will is big. And I'm so grateful that you found the time to join my show.
Wow, I'm very encouraged by that. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share that. And thank you for putting in the work, because I know this is the fun part of the job, doing the interviews, but it takes a lot to arrange it, because even with this, we had to rearrange a couple of times with all the travel and now for the editing and the posting. So on behalf of your community, I don't know how often you hear from them, can I say thank you on their behalf for all the work you put in to creating these podcasts and sharing this value.
This is amazing. Dan, truly inspiration. My day is going to be much better now for sure after this, and definitely when it goes out once again. So I want to thank you so much. Thank you, our viewers and listeners, for watching the Lirone Glikman show, the show that explores the human factor around business and entrepreneurship in a hybrid world. Obviously, you can watch it on YouTube, on my channel, and on all of the podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel on YouTube if you are there right now, and comment next to this video, and I will see you on our next interview. Thank you so much.